Well, here we are, and it's a beautiful Easter Sunday day. Uh, Wonderful sunshine here at Osbacka in the forests of southern Sweden, up on the ridge that separates Skåne from Halland. Beautiful day outside, lots of small wild anemone showing their faces to the sun.
And here we are, and we want to take some time today to talk about shamanism, death, life, and rebirth. Because where we are here in Sweden, it's a lot of rebirth going on right now, and the energy around us is amazing, this springtime energy. And as always, when we come to these turning points in the year, it's not one of the official celebration turning points, but it's a real turning point in nature, a turning phase. It's coming. And so it's good to take some time to look at where we are in the cycle. And the cycle of life is also the cycle of death and rebirth. And so that's what we want to talk about today.
And the cycle of death and rebirth is definitely the cycle of life as well. And we've been reminded about this constantly at this time, especially because of this pandemic that's raging around the world, or roaming around the world, ranging around the world, and touching all of us in one way or another. And I feel my heart really going out to the people who are ill, and the people who have lost someone close to them, and also to the people who are living in fear because of this situation. And it's hard for all those people, and it's hard for everybody, because there's never a moment where somebody isn't really feeling touched by this pandemic.
And for me, these last few weeks being at home in the forest here with nature around has been an interesting experience, because as we read about death and dying and suffering and illness and recovery, I'm also surrounded by this incredible life energy just rising up. And many times have I thought, how different would it be to go through this if it was deep winter? And personally, I love the deep winter here. I love the darkness. I love that dream time of going within. But I think it would have been a very different time to experience that, to experience this pandemic during the dark time. And for me, I'm very grateful that we're experiencing it now in springtime. And in a way, it might seem like a strange paradox. But in a way, as you like to say, sometimes paradox is the logic of the shaman. And for many of us, we might think about death and life as opposites, as like far away as we can get on a line. And often that's how we tend to look at things in the more kind of Western European society, maybe, mindset model, that there is a model of two things, a pair, and the pair is seen as an opposite, and they're far away from each other. Whereas instead, in a more holistic, or shall we say shamanic worldview, the pairs do not kind of separate out on a line, but they instead form two parts of a whole, and they inform each other, and they're constantly dancing with each other, and they're constantly with each other, and so that you cannot really have one without the other. And so to be in this time, which is the time we have now, of death and life in springtime.
It's reminding me, what you said reminds me a lot about the whole yin and yang of the situation of life. And another thing is that most of us, I know speaking from my own experience, for most of my life, I haven't really been concentrating on my death or even thinking about it every day. And certainly in my younger years, there would probably go weeks, months, or maybe even years where I did not consider my death. But in this pandemic situation, we find that death is not somewhere off in the mist someplace, but really just staring at us in the face. And I think that by this time, all of us in our wider circles, anyway, know of someone, maybe a friend or maybe someone in a friend's family who has died already. And so we're being, I feel, really called on or forced to look at death as a part of life. And this is really an incredible gift, I feel, because when we look at death as a part of life, it really reminds us that, hey, we're also alive. This is what's happening right now. I am alive. I am here right now. And so what am I going to do, as Jane
as Mary
Oliver asked, what am I going to do with this one wild, precious life? It's really something that's wonderful to think about. And the choices are so many. And the choices come at us all the time, all day long, every day. What are you going to do with life? And it can seem overwhelming, but maybe it's because I've lived a few years now. And I really feel that if we look at these questions, what am I going to do with life, if we don't look at them from the point of view of death, but if we look at them from the point of view of love, what am I going to do with my life? How can I show my love?
And for those of us who do work shamanically, who work with inviting spirit teachers and spirit helpers into our life, for me, I feel that that's a way of really engaging with a bigger picture, engaging with the universe and life as really alive, far beyond than the human sphere. And for me, that is a way of living that is very wonderful, exciting, inspiring, moving, and nourishing. And so one of our first guidelines when working shamanically is to ask for help. So if you're in a situation where you want to step into life more, you feel maybe half alive and you want to really feel fully alive, ask for help. If you're in a situation where you or someone you know is on the threshold of death, ask for help. And whatever stage we're in, it is possible to get help and to go through it as a healing process. And many times have I been with people who are dying or will soon be dying, and there comes this point where we stop the struggle of trying to stay in life and open to the healing process that's possible. And I feel that with the help of of a spirit community and the help of a circle and the help of the amazing world that's around us, this can be possible.
And this world around us, that's what a wonderful reminder. And at this time, a lot of people are finding that the world around is not accessible, and it's very, very difficult. But in fact, it is accessible, because the world around might be limited to a room or an apartment right now, but still, that's the world. And so you are in it, and it's your own universe right there. And from the shaman's way of looking at things, all those things around you in your home, they are all part of the world. And they all have a secret for you. They all have a gift for you. And this is a great opportunity to ask the spirits for help, to come closer to feeling the aliveness of the world around you, even if you don't have the opportunity to go out into nature. Your life is rippling out, touching everything around you, and they're all rippling back to you. And so get into communication, ask for help to be aware of life, ask for help to step into life more fully. They'll listen.
And I know a lot of people who say that sometimes after a long time of working with death and dying, they are no longer afraid of it. And for me, there is a part of being, maybe afraid is not the right word, but respecting death, shall we say, is for me something that I actually very much value in my life, because it reminds me of how much I love life. And I know that when this life is over, other things will happen, and they might be just as wonderful and exciting. But there's something so fantastic about being a human in a physical body on this physical earth at this amazing time. And I just love life. I love being able to be alive. And this was not always so for me in my life. But the more I've worked with the spirits, the more soul retrieval work I've had, the more healings, the more closer contact to both human community and nature and spirit community. I really feel like I've filled up, and I just love life. And maybe I'll love life even more when I'm just about to die, and I just think, no, just a bit more, just a bit more. And so there's a part of me, I think, that will always say, no, I don't want death, because I love life so much. But then there's another part of me that sinks into the peaceful knowledge that from another perspective, it is simply another threshold. It's simply another threshold. And we can work with the threshold of death and dying in the same way that we work with any threshold of change. We can ask for help, we can ask for guidance, we can ask for power, we can ask for support, and we can ask for blessings. And all of these things help us in different ways. Blessings are wonderful for endings and beginnings. And at every threshold, there will be an ending and there will be a beginning. And when we're right in the middle of the threshold, it might feel like we don't know where we are, because we've ended something or we're about to end something. And something will begin, but we can't quite see it yet. And so we're in this potential liminal phase. And it can be difficult to be there if we're not used to that feeling. Because instead of feeling, I'm here at the threshold. It can be easy to run around and say, what's going to happen next? Or where did I come from? It's okay. We can just be be at the threshold and allow things to have a natural flow and a natural movement, just like at this time of year when the birds start to sing, when the flowers start to grow, the leaves come out of the tree. You know, the tree is not thinking, oh my God, should I be putting out my leaves now? It just happens. So be on the threshold and let it happen.
It's the only place to be. That's where we are all the time. And this is such a wonderful opportunity to, how shall I say, put all the things we think we know up on the shelf and be right here and see what's going on. It's a wonderful opportunity to be quiet. This pandemic is giving us amazing gifts. Of course, it's more difficult for some of the people who are working in hospitals, for some of the people who are lying in hospitals. It might be difficult to see the gifts. But they're here. The gifts are right here. And if we can slow down and remember, as Zara was saying, to ask for help, the help is here. It's right here. And this is a wonderful opportunity to look deeply at what we feel is life. Because if we do that, we'll find that life is much more than anything we imagined before. And we'll also feel a much deeper connection to it. You're not in this alone. One of the wonderful things about this pandemic is that it's joining the world together. We're facing this amazing time. And I don't like to put a negative or positive value on it, but it is a time for learning, a time for being amazed. And I just feel so connected with so many people, with so many things that are going on. When I see what's happening in various parts of the world, I can really feel my heart going out to those people. And then when I read about the responses that a lot of people are having, I think human beings are capable of so much. Why does it have to take a crisis to bring this out? And of course it doesn't. A lot of people are doing amazing things constantly. It's just in times like this that we hear about them. But remember, there's so much more, and it's so close. You only have to reach out and touch it, and ask for help, and it'll come to you.
And you were saying about the question about life and really opening to life and recognizing life and reaching out and touching life again. And in a shamanic or animistic worldview, we're never only in the human perspective. We're always in the perspective of the whole, the connected web and the weave. And so I find that when I'm at a loss for what to do or for understanding, then I often look to nature. And if you can, go outside and see what is happening in nature now. What can nature teach you about the natural movement that might be necessary today? If you can't go outside, then try to look at some pictures or read about it or watch a documentary. Anything to connect to the natural movement in nature. And many human beings, especially in maybe the modern consumerist world, have for the last 100+ years become rather obsessed with the question of identity, of asking themselves, who am I? And this can be a very interesting question, but for me, it's not really that interesting anymore. And I find that maybe as a society has a lot of soul loss through the way it's living, of course we need to ask this question, who am I? Because we lost our natural roots, our natural place in the world, and we don't know who we are anymore. It's actually quite understandable. And as we begin to fill up the holes inside of us and become more alive again, it just becomes so obvious and clear who we are. I don't have to think about it. In Swedish, there's a beautiful word called självklart. Det är självklart. It's just, of course, I'm me. It's like, it doesn't even become a question anymore. And then my question is much more interesting. How do I want to live? And what is life to me? And then in that way, I'm not just sort of looking inward, but I'm looking outward. I am me in the world saying, oh, I want to be connected. I want to have a relationship with the world. I want to be alive.
It's wonderful to be alive. And some of you know I had this major surgery a couple of years ago, and when I woke up after the surgery, the nurse came over and he asked me, he said, how do you feel? Well, I couldn't lift my head up off the pillow, but I looked at him and I just almost shouted, I think. I said, I feel great. I'm alive. And, you know, I had been unconscious for 8 or 9 hours on the operating table, and I did. I felt wonderful. I felt alive. And that was a great gift to hear these words come out of my mouth. I didn't even think about them. So here we are.
And I feel that one of the gifts of this time is the incredible life force in nature right now, at least for those of us here in the Northern Hemisphere. I don't know how this experience is feeling if you're going into autumn and fall, but I can only speak from where we are, from where I am, which is here. And my experience is of facing death at a time of huge life force. And in my mind, I could say to myself, no, it's not right with all this life around me. I have to focus on the death. But there's another part of me that says, this is what's being offered now to us here. Those of us who are being offered life force can really open to it. It's right here. And I feel it's helping us, all the life force that is in the universe, in the nature, here with us on Earth. This is the cycle that the Earth is in these places. And where it is springtime, you can ask for help from the springtime. You can journey to the spirit of spring and ask, please ask for help to be connected to the energy of springtime or to the life force, the new life in springtime. And this is really what Easter is all about. Easter is celebrating the return. And all the eggs, wonderful Easter eggs. This is the promise of new life coming. And at some point we have to crack it open. And that can also be a very hard time on the threshold. Another aspect of the threshold of cracking the new life open, the rebirth, that nearly always means something has to give. Something has to break, something has to be stepped out of and left behind. And that moment is like a moment of choice. Do I choose life, or What kind of life do I choose? And this is not a competition. There's no real value to it. It's just a choice that we can ask ourselves when we stand on that threshold with things about to break around us, whether we like it or
not. I was just thinking about some of our friends in Australia and South America, and how, in fact, it's getting to be the autumn time for them. And it reminded me of what we were saying in the beginning about life, death, and rebirth. And you've been talking about the rebirth, and autumn is also a wonderful time, because if we don't get personal about it, oh gosh, I'm 78 now and I don't have much longer to go. You don't know. You're lucky to get 78, Jonathan, right? But these years, they're different. They're different, just like the autumn months are different than the spring months. And the great, great gifts in that as well. The gifts of understanding. And youth is the time of questioning, perhaps. And maybe when we get older in the autumn years, some of the answers start becoming more and more clear. And this is a wonderful gift. And not something to be not valued, should we say. And it's all part of the cycle. And each point on the compass is just as valuable as every other point on the compass.
And for me, that's when life really starts to open up, and I start to open up, so that wherever I am, whatever part of the cycle, I am with that. If I am young, then I am with that. If I am getting older, then when I am with that. And I'm with it to see, what is it offering me? What is the gift of the season that I am in right now? And we can have a season, a cycle of seasons sort of every day emotionally, and for life longer or within a project. Everything has a natural life cycle. And for me, it helps a lot to look to nature and see, what are the natural life cycles, and how are they moving, and what are they teaching me, and how do they help me to look at where I really am now, to see the perfection in this moment, so that I can receive the gifts of the time I'm in, rather than wishing to be in another time. And then life opens up.
One of my teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh, has a wonderful gatha, as I think he calls them, a meditation phrase. And this one is present moment, wonderful moment. And this is such a deep teaching, these simple words. But all of us have times when we feel uncertain. All of us have times when we feel afraid. The future is always unknown. The times we step into fear, those are the times when we feel that the future is packed with something that we don't want to look at or experience. But the future is always unknown. So if we just remember to look around in the present moment and feel the gifts of that moment, then we can be here. Present moment, wonderful moment. What a gift.
And if you're able to journey to your spirits, a wonderful journey mission is to ask to see a particular situation through their eyes, or ask to understand more about the spirit perspective of what you're going through. And that doesn't just have to be in big times of crisis, but any time. If you feel yourself moving through a threshold, if you feel yourself moving towards an ending or into a beginning, it can be really helpful to see their perspective, because sometimes it helps me to just stand back a little bit and to see things in a whole new way. And it doesn't change how things are, but it changes my own relationship to how things are. And then I can come back maybe with more peace and more power in my heart and have a clearer sense of where I want to go. And this is a really good practice. And right now, wherever you are in your life, maybe there is something ending, finishing. It doesn't need to be a death. It doesn't need to be even something major. It could be something small today or around this time that needs to be finished up, that needs to have a good and proper ending. And it's wonderful to do small rituals or ceremonies to help things really finish well. And my feeling is that as we're having trouble facing death and dying, we're also having trouble facing smaller endings in life. And this can mean that energetically, we just leave a whole lot of loose threads everywhere. And when we begin to do the work that we need to do with the help of spirits, with the help of nature, with the help of ceremony, to finish things well, then energetically it gets kind of held in a different way. And it's not necessarily easier, but it's stronger to step into the new. And so we cannot just go into beginnings all the time without finishing.
And what a blessing that is.
So you might want to think about if there are any things in your life you want to finish now or soon in these weeks, and find a good way to do it. Ask for help and advice. Do a very small, simple ritual. Its simplest rituals, maybe just writing something on a letter, on a piece of paper, writing a letter of goodbye, lighting a candle, reading it out aloud, and maybe finding a safe way to burn it. Very simple, and then just give thanks.
Another possibility for people who journey easily and well is to go to your spirit teachers or guides and ask them, what in my life needs finishing? And then another journey could be, after you've done that, how can I use the freed energy to start something new? And what should that be? Right? We who practice shamanism have our spirits here, and we play a role in their lives, and they play a role in our lives. And they're here to help us, to teach us, so that we can carry out their work here too. We're not alone. They're here for us, and we're here for them. So don't be afraid to ask for help or advice. The time is now.
And as we do this work of finishing, of good endings, often what happens is energy does get released, and we get released. And we get lighter, and we get cleaner. And it's easier to take that step. You know, if you're still attached to those things that's behind you, it's hard to step over the threshold. When we finish well, with ceremony, with healing work, with help, then maybe it just melts away and it becomes so easy and like a natural movement to step forward into what is beginning. And then we can really be there for the beginning, rather than half looking over our shoulder wondering when that's going to catch up with us.
Or jumping into the future, trying to jump into the future.
To get away from
to
what's
get
behind
away
us.
from what's behind us, or even to get away from what is now. Because what is now is the most beautiful gift if we're here to receive it. And so please be here. Be here now.
And enjoy this beautiful time. And wherever you are, I wish you blessings of beginnings and blessings of ending and blessings of life and blessings of a healing death if you're at that threshold.
Wherever you are, here we are. Thank you for now.
Blessed springtime.
Blessed springtime. Beautiful life.